Today on CityCast Philly, it's the Friday News Roundup. We're talking about the latest on last week's bus stop shooting and how Philadelphians feel about redesigns of our sports arenas. It's Friday, March 15th. I'm Trinity Nuri, and here's what Philly's talking about. Joining me this week is Ellie Rushing, criminal justice and law enforcement reporter at the Philadelphia Inquirer. Welcome back to CityCast Philly.
I'm always happy to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. And Mike Donofrio, reporter at Axios Philadelphia. Hey, Mike.
Hey, how's it going? Great to be here.
Good. Okay, before we get into the news of the week, the sun was out, y'all, this week. The highs reached 70 degrees. I felt it. It felt great. I got some ice cream. So today's icebreaker, I want to ask you, what is the most Philly thing you notice when it gets warm outside?
Oh, this is a toughie. The most Philly thing? How about the thing I enjoy most is the cherry blossoms coming out.
Yes.
I mean, it's like a symbol of spring. They're popping everywhere. I'm excited. I'm excited to see them.
Nice.
And I love how everyone just starts sitting on the steps of their row house and just kind of that like evening chatter between neighbors really returns.
Nice.
It kind of dies down a little bit in the winter, but
right.
Yeah, it's fun.
I love that. I love that. For me, it's the sounds of the cars blasting loud music. You guys have like peaceful examples.
I mean, neighbors on the steps aren't always peaceful, but
that's true.
It's at least fun.
The ATVs roaring on the block, and the long lines at the water ice and ice cream spots. That's what I love about Philly during the spring. All right, let's get into some of the news of the week. Ellie, you've been covering the bus stop shooting that happened in Northeast last week that left 8 teens injured from gunfire. Since then, officials have arrested 3 suspects involved in the case. And as of Wednesday, authorities are still looking for a 4th suspect. Ellie, take us back to what actually happened last week.
From Monday to Wednesday, 11 juveniles were shot, which is really an extraordinary number of kids in just the span of about 72 hours. So everything started on Monday, right after Imhotep High School, which is in the Ogon section of the city, like pretty far north Philadelphia. Kids were getting out of school at Imhotep. It was about 3:45. A bunch of kids were getting onto the bus to go home when 2 young men with guns ran up to the crowd and just started firing into the crowd of kids at close range. 17-year-old Damon Taylor was shot multiple times and was killed. 2 other students were injured. And then 2 older women who were seated on the bus, shots flew through the window and struck them, and they were also injured. This was a really jarring event. The Imhotep community is really close. That's, not a school or like an area that often sees a lot of violence. From talking to the police commissioner, he was like, this isn't an area that we often see issues. And so that really, shook the city. And then, 2 days later, Wednesday, an eerily similar situation unfolds. Again, kids at the bus stop, this time in North Philadelphia in the Burholm section of the city, around Cotman and Rising Sun Avenues. And so this intersection is known as the 5 Points section. This is where a lot of, hundreds of kids transfer buses at this section every day. There's 5 or 6 buses that stop at this location. Mm-hmm. And so, again, kids had just gotten out of school. They were waiting at this bus stop. It was just about 3 o'clock when 3 young people with guns jump out of a car that had been, sitting right there on the corner waiting, and fired more than 30 shots within seconds into the crowd of kids. 8 kids this time were shot. At least 1 was very critical. He was shot 9 times, a 16-year-old boy. Another 16-year-old was shot multiple times, and he's still in the hospital. Another boy was shot in the back and still has a bullet lodged in his spine, and his family is trying to figure out, how to have a very risky surgery or even, what to do next. And so it was just a really extraordinary level of violence against kids at the place where, they're supposed to be safe, waiting for the bus home, just leaving school. It really shook a lot of people, and including city leaders.
Ellie, what was the city's response to last week's really violent week? What did they say?
So Mayor Parker went to the scene of the shooting in the Northeast, and alongside Police Commissioner Bethel and District Attorney Larry Krasner and many other top police officials and city leaders, she, in the rain, under a sheet of rain, said very forcefully that the city will not be held hostage by gun violence, that she and the police department will take any legal means necessary to find the shooters, to get guns off the street, and to prevent more violence like this from happening. Within 48 hours, they did fulfill part of that, goal. They arrested the first 18-year-old, within 2 days. And as of today, they have 3 of the 4 alleged people involved in custody.
Ellie, earlier this week, there was a press conference. A bunch of different agencies were there, and someone mentioned that there might be certain groups related to this shooting at the bus stop in Northeast. They weren't very specific. So do we know anything more about what that actually means or what the motive was?
Police haven't definitively said that the shooting in the Northeast is related to the shooting at Imhotep. Philly, it is kind of a debated issue whether Philadelphia has gangs or not. A lot of people kind of call them, street groups. They're usually like pretty loosely formed groups of young people who kind of grow up in the same areas, on the same blocks, see each other more as family, young men who kind of come together and lean on each other for support when they don't have a lot of support, either at home or in the community in general. And so in the Northeast and across that area of Olney, there are a handful of groups like this, mostly of young men. And so the police have said that they think that it could have been kind of gang, street group related type of feud between 2 groups of kids.
All right. You can read more of Ellie's reporting and other reporting from the Philadelphia Inquirer by checking out our show notes. More news of the week after the break. This is CityCast Philly. All right, let's get into the other story of the week. Mike, Axios Philadelphia asked its readers to vote for their choice of a redesign of our sports arenas. So the choices were the 76th Place or Comcast Spectacor's South Philly Sports Complex. But before we get into the results of the survey, can you kind of explain what these designs look like for our listeners?
All right, so these are 2 very big kind of generational projects that have a lot of buzz in the city, and we'll see whether both or either of them actually get pulled off, right? So you got the Sixers. They put forward their proposal, I think 2 years ago. It's this 18,500 seat arena on Market East, right? They want to go from South Philly. They play at the Wells Fargo Center, and they want to build their own stadium, right? They want to control their own destiny and be in their own building. Right. And this plan also includes a residential tower, street level retail and restaurants that are going to be open full year, right? While people are not playing basketball, there's going to be some access to it, and it's going to cost about $1.5 billion, right? So the Sixers are kind of adamant and determined to open this thing by 2031.
Right, and it's also important to mention that this plan has been controversial.
Yes, very much so. Whether you talk about how it will affect traffic in the area, whether you're talking about how it will affect surrounding neighborhoods, particularly Chinatown, and many groups there are against it. So we'll see what happens. I know everybody's waiting for this handful of studies from the city to kind of analyze kind of the impact of what the stadium will have for the area. It was supposed to be released at the end of last year during the Kennedy administration. Right. That was kind of punted. So we'll see when the Parker administration decides to release it.
Okay, so that was the plan in Market East, downtown. Mike, can you describe Comcast Spectacor's sports complex?
Sure. Comcast Spectacor's project is completely different, right? It's a whole reimagining of the South Philly sports complex, right? Right now, it's kind of this isolated stadium district where you're only going to go there if you're going to a game. They want to flip the script. They want to bring hotels, residential units, restaurants, shops, a new concert venue. Eventually, they want to replace the Wells Fargo Center. Basically, they want to create a destination and neighborhood there where there is not one now. And they've tried this before. about 20 years ago, somewhere 20 years ago, and it never came to fruition. So we'll see if this is actually going to happen, only parts will happen, or whether it's just a PR stunt to convince the Sixers to stay.
Any insight on how much this could cost and the timeline?
It's going to cost an estimated $2.5 billion, and it's going to take at least 10 years.
All right. Mike, so tell us what Axios Philadelphia readers voted for. Which project plan do they look forward to?
Right. So these projects are they're very buzzy. A lot of people are talking about them, especially how they're going to impact the city. So we decided to kind of have a little fun with it in a very unscientific way, engage the public approval of either project by pitting them against each other. Mm-hmm. So more than 1,100 people responded, and people voted overwhelmingly for Comcast SpectaCore's project in South Philly, 81% compared to 19% for 76th Place.
Is that because there's more offerings to kind of mesh all of, like you said, the stadium district? I love that. Kind of mesh the stadium district together. So some nights, Phillies are playing, Sixers are playing, we can go across and watch.
The responses were varied, but they pretty much could be boiled down to, for Comcast SpectaCore, they were saying they wanted to keep the sports teams in one place, and they loved the new amenities that would be put there. And a lot of people responded saying that they were concerned about how the Sixers plan would affect traffic and nearby Chinatown.
Now, Mike, to be fair, what did people in support of the 76th Place say?
So backers of the Sixers arena said that they were excited for the opportunity to see Market East revitalized, right? They believe that the arena can, lift up the area, which has been struggling for decades. And they also love how easily people can get to the stadium via public transportation. And many of them question whether Comcast's plan would even happen.
All right. You can read more of Mike's reporting by clicking the links in our show notes. That was Mike Donofrio, reporter at Axios Philadelphia, and Ellie Rushing, criminal justice and law enforcement reporter at the Philadelphia Inquirer. Thank you both so much for being on CityCast Philly.
Thanks so much. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's time for the tip of the week, where we share a life hack for living in Philly. Philadelphia Parks and Recreation is looking for lifeguards. You have to be 16 years or older, pass the lifeguard screening test, and complete a Red Cross lifeguard certification course. Apply before the April 15th deadline to receive a bonus of $1,000. For more information, check out the link in our show notes. If you have a tip of the week, we'd love to hear from you too. Call or text us at 215-259-8170. That's all for this week on CityCast Philly. Our executive producer is Laura Benchoff. Our producers are Abby Fritz, a.k.a. Al Moment, and Noah Snyderman. Our Hey Philly newsletter editor is Asha Prahar. And our host is me, Trenae Marie. Music is by Philly's own Interminable, with additional music from All the Kimonos and James Weldon. If you enjoyed the show, tell a friend. Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey Philly. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Have a great weekend and be safe, y'all. Bye.